most of you would be aware of what is competitive intelligence and are already using it in some form or the other, whether formally or informally. In fact, Abhijit shared a presentation with me, and I was actually very impressed, with the kind of thinking. Normally, we don't, though I've been working in this field for a long time, we find that a lot of people in India are sort of unaware or uh, don't have that kind of approach. So I was very pleased to see that. I said, okay, let's see if I can engage. So I've prepared a small presentation. I am not very sure of, how much you know about the subject, or whether, so it's sometimes a challenge. So am I talking to a audience that is very aware, very sophisticated, or there's a mixture of people who are sophisticated and not? So I was a little unsure of, at what level I should do this. So it may be that some of the concepts are very obvious to some of you, but please be patient and, feel free to ask questions, and I'd be happy to sort of uh, answer questions, whether it's something basic or whether it's something complicated as we go along, right? So I'm going to try and share my screen. Um, just give me a second.
We saw your screen for some time.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the, yeah, here it is. Is this now, can you see? I was just
Yes.
looking at the
Yes.
view, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about various comparative intelligence techniques to enhance customer insight. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about structured win-loss programs, which I think are very relevant to this community. So, let me just begin. Okay. So I've broken this into three parts. The first is just a little bit about value of CI. Then something about how CI needs to be integrated into decision making. It's not just for the sales or the bid and professionals, it's at an organizational level and what can be done there. Uh, and then a little bit about win-loss programs. So I don't know how you people conduct the webinars, but feel free to ask questions, or as we go along, I'm fine with that. So the first thing is, what is competitive intelligence? What is CI? Uh, Anybody want to volunteer an answer?
Gaining insights with regards to our competitors, in the vertical or the sector that we operate or where we are bidding for that time. So getting that competitive edge in terms of what differentiates them with us.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody has a different view or slightly different definition, let me say? Okay. So you're right, but it's not about the competition, right? It's really, this is a definition, right? It's the process of gathering and analyzing information on the environment, industry, competitors, customers for informed decision making, right? So this is a common sort of view that because the word competitive intelligence, it is viewed as studying the competition, right? So actually, it's about the business environment. It's not about the competition, and this is it's a lot broader, right? So what are the components of this? So you would have, what's happening in the world, whether it's COVID or economy, um, social changes. Now you have situation where workers have gone back. So these are all things that are happening which are going to impact your business. Technology, we are seeing how important technology is becoming to all of us, right? And many of us, and many of you probably are in the technology world, right? Then understanding customers, understanding markets, how they are evolving, how customers are evolving, how the needs are evolving, right? The distribution, right? How do I reach my customer? How do I deliver the product now with, say, e-commerce? Or this is just totally changing, right? Suppliers, raw materials, your value chain. What is the industry structure? What are the key trends? Competitors, of course, and then regulation, right? How is this? So it's not about competition. I think that's the first thing to understand. Because when you look at it only from the perspective of competition, you're limiting yourself. You want to arrive at a better decision, you want to make better decisions, you want to have a competitive edge. So the word competitive has come in because that was how it was defined, that it's information or insight that gives me a competitive advantage or a competitive edge. So that's why they said competitive intelligence. But over the years, the meaning has come to be about competitor, whereas that is actually only competitor intelligence. You know, and that's a very narrow thing. In a lot of cases, your competitor may not matter, right? It's more about the customer. Why does he like you? Does he like your product? Are you able to differentiate yourself? It's not necessarily only about the competitor. Yes, you do need to know what the competitor is doing. You do need to know what their offering is, what their strategy is, but that's not all. Knowing only about that is not going to help you win. It's knowing all of this stuff, right? The entire business environment, right? So I think this is a very critical uh, piece of understanding. So, this, in fact, this terminology has created huge problem because everyone thinks like this. So, in fact, in Europe, um, they don't say competitive intelligence; they say market intelligence. They use that word is more commonly used because it just gets away from this competitor.
Yeah, actually, I was coming to that point wherein I thought this all falls under a market intelligence perspective.
Yes. So these are all terminologies, and I think that's the problem which has happened to this whole CI is that it is considered, competitor, and therefore it is to do with spying and it is to do with unethical things. It's not that. It is about looking at all these things and trying to get an insight, right? It's broader than market because it's not only about market. It's about technology, it's about regulation, it's about your supply chain. It's not market is sort of seen as a market, the customers. That's so when you say market research, generally you talk about that. So it's a broader thing, right? So that's why now there's an association. It's called Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals globally, which is the association for CI. So they used to be called Society for Competitive Intelligence Professionals, SCIP, and they changed the name to Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals. So these things happen, but it's not only competitive. I think that's the critical thing. Okay, so why do you need competitive intelligence? And just so obviously you get a better return on investment. Your business perform better. It is really about being proactive rather than reactive, right? You want to anticipate change. You want to anticipate your competitors' move. You want to anticipate the technology is going to disrupt your business, right? a lot of it is about early warning, right? If you do it properly, if an organization does this properly, you before things happen, you kind of sense or you can get some idea that this might happen. It could be regulatory, it could be technology, it could be competitor, it could be customer behavior change, right? And then this feeds into making strategy, feeds into decision making and lowering risk. And so this is some of sort of the things. Again, we go back. I've just sort of put the business ecosystem and the kind of things that are done, right? The underneath that, the points like, say, I'm looking at expanding into new geographies or developing new products. Then the things I'm looking at is opportunity assessment, market sizing and segmentation, location assessment. These are all elements of competitive intelligence. If I'm looking to save costs, let's say from suppliers, or people are talking about this China moving from China to some other place, right? There's a whole area of procurement intelligence, uh, going about how do you select partners, how do you find out whether they are ethical, how do you find out. So this is all requires research, it requires intelligence, right? Someone's got to do it, either you or you hire a vendor or hire a consultant or whatever it is. So that's all part of this. Then obviously the competition part, which is profiling a competitor, benchmarking, monitoring what they are doing. But that's sort of the obvious. Uh, the customer. So a lot of it is actually your customer, right? Your customer is the key person in all of this. He decides whether you are going to get money or not. So there's a lot of techniques and types of research, types of analysis that goes into this. So win-loss analysis, we'll talk about today. There's customer profiling, a simple thing like making a profile of your customer. But how to do it in a way that you actually get insight. We have seen people, you make 20-page customer profiles with all the financials, and it's all probably one page or that has value, right? You're really, so a lot of the work that has happened in competitive intelligence field is around, how do I get insight out of this? How do I use it to make a decision? I don't want an overload of information, right? Then there's a voice of customer studies. There are brand perceptions where you're trying to understand what your customer perceives about your brand. So there are many different elements to this, which are actually specific types of research or types of intelligence, right? Which feed into this. Some may be more useful for you, some may be less useful. And you're probably doing all of this or some of this. Most organizations are doing this in the guise of market research, maybe as part of your procurement, maybe as part of some other activity in your organization. It's just often not seen as competitive intelligence. It's not. The other thing interesting, and we work with a lot of companies, that these are happening in silos. Some purchase department's got some information. Your HR has got information because they're getting so many resumes. Right? So there's so many, but nobody's there to put it together and to deliver it to the strategy guys or the sales guys who often need it the most. So there's a little bit about CI. Why do you need? So I'll just talk a little bit about how this needs to be integrated into decision making. It's not about getting the information and keeping it on somebody's hard disk, right? A lot of times money is spent on this, whether they call it research or CI or some other thing. A lot of organization, a lot of effort goes into this, a lot of money goes into this, but it doesn't provide any return, right? Because it doesn't reach the decision maker and it's not aligned to the business objectives, right? So when you're going to do this, if you're going to suggest to your company, let's do this, let's hire a guy internally, externally, whatever, to do this kind of activity. The first thing is, what's my objective, right? What are my business objectives? Do I want to expand in China? Do I want to increase market share? Do I want to increase the win rate of my proposal? There's got to be one or two or five very critical business objectives that you're dealing with. It cannot be everything. I mean, that is huge. You start with a few, prioritize those. For those business objectives, there will be some key intelligence topics, right? So let's say I'm looking at just for example, I want to go to China. I want to do business in China. Then around that, there are going to be very specific key intelligence topics which need to be identified. Based on those topics, I will see, okay, these are my information needs, right? I will do an analysis of what are the gaps. Do I have some of this information already? Is it already available to me? Is it not available to me? How am I going to get it? And then I make a plan, right? The first thing is, what are the key intelligence topics, right? Don't try to do everything. You can't find out everything about the world and it's too costly, right? So some of the key questions, starting with objectives, what are the pieces of information I need? Why do I need them? How am I going to use them, right? Is it enough? How will I find them? How will I put them together? How much will it cost? So this is sort of the process that organizations go through in terms of trying to go from business objective to competitive intelligence. So some of these slides are, I've pulled from somewhere else. I don't want to spend a lot of time. So you identify key intelligence topics, which are the decisions that I'm going to take, what are the kind of subjects or topics that I need that are going to give me early warning signs, who are the key competitors that I want to track. So this is all part of the thing. But my wish list cannot be infinite, right? This is a problem that we run into very often. Oh yeah, this is great. I want all this, right? Everything comes with a cost, right? So you got to look at ROI. It is, the value I'm getting from the data or the research must be greater than the cost. And, this is one of the things that we always want everything. I would like to know everything about my competitor. It's going to cost. And sometimes it's just not feasible to do this in an ethical fashion. So you must try and see what is the balance, right? Do I need to know everything or do I need to know enough to help me make my decision, right? And this is a very critical aspect to sort of internalize, right? And this helps you prioritize, what I am going to focus on. Some things may be highly desirable, but it may be impossible to get information, right? A lot of people come to us and say, can you get me quarterly financials of unlisted companies? How am I going to get it, right? Unless I'm totally unethical and bribing people. So you have to be realistic in terms of what you want to get, right? I think this is a very interesting analogy. Competitive intelligence is a jigsaw puzzle, right? You look at it, you look at this, say you look at these pieces, and there's something there you don't know what it is, right? And then you start sort of piecing it together, you do a little bit of analysis, you fill in a couple of gaps, and slowly you can start looking at it, you can say, hey, I'm getting an idea of what this is now, right? And here I've got something I know it's some kind of dog, right? I might even be able to identify the breed. And that's enough. I don't need to know, I don't need to have every single piece, right? It's fine to have incomplete information. In fact, you will always have incomplete information. If you think that competitive intelligence is going to give you everything, every answer, that's not true. You're going to have incomplete information and you have to live with that. You have to learn. The whole field of competitive intelligence is about trying to get insight from incomplete information. So the expectation is that I'm going to get everything is wrong. You're going to get only a few pieces of that jigsaw. It's how you get insight from that. That is the critical thing. That how do I play with this and I get enough to make my decision and make my strategy, right? So you don't need all the pieces, right? There's another thing about information and intelligence. That's a small point I'd like to make. So data is, there's data, right? Let's say I have some data price of something went up or my competitor lowered his price or that's data, right? Now add little bit of value to that and it becomes information, right? I can say, oh, this is the increase, this is the expected increase over the next 2 years or next year or whatever. So I've suddenly got a trend, right? Intelligence comes when I can look at the implications, right? So now this has happened. So therefore, so what, right? So what will happen to me? So what will happen to my competition? So what will happen to my customer? Answering the so what is a very critical, this is the most critical question in CI, right? So what will happen? So what do I do, right? Can I increase the price of my product? Do I need to cut the cost of my raw material? What it is? So the intelligence, or like if like the way we look at it, if we are analysts and we are doing this, our clients want the intelligence. They want something actionable, like, hey, these are the 3 steps you can take, or you should take, or this is how you can mitigate. That's when you're really providing insight. Just saying that, hey, the price has gone up and all is, it's fine, but it's at a very basic level, right? So therefore, if you're going to do CI, you need to understand the business. That's obvious. Okay. So what is relevant to decision makers? Now, this is, I'm not going to go too much into this. This is really when you go into setting up a CI program in your organization. You start with the need, you look at the sources, then you collect the data. So this is just I'm not going to get too much into it. And this is all, this is all fairly, I'll just quickly go through this so that you kind of understand. So where do you get the information? There are secondary sources and there are primary sources. So secondary sources is essentially what is published, databases, reports, newspaper articles, annual reports of competitors, all of those things. And primary is, humans, talking to humans. This is actually very valuable. It could be internal or external. In India, primary research is valuable because the quality of published information is very poor. You don't get a lot of information. Though that's changing, you don't get a lot of information in industry. It's not like in the US where everything is documented and you can buy a report off the shelf, or you can, it's just sometime on Google and you'll get it. Here you don't get information, you have to actually talk to people. So internal sources actually hugely valuable, right? You have sales team knows a lot. They may not know that they know a lot, but they talk to customers, they're in the field, they know a lot. And a lot of companies don't gather this information, right? There are other employees. There are employees who have worked at competition. There are employees who have worked with customers. They know a lot. We never tap that information, right? Sales team gets it from you go to trade shows. There's a lot of information that's coming on trade shows. Your distributors, your own customers have a lot of information, right? So there are a lot of sources that can be tapped. So there's some of the sources, and this is the area which is mostly underexploited. People don't see the value of what is there, right? In IT, for example, we did some work with a company. Their HR department had the maximum information legally, ethically, right? They were receiving 1 million resumes. I don't know, 500,000 resumes, some crazy number. And all in those resumes, people had written what projects they had worked on, this, that, and they were not using that. This is information that was being sent to them unsolicited, right? So there are so many sources that we don't know about, and that's why it's sort of important to think and have, okay, let's create a CI department, or even a person or half a person who looks at this and looks at stuff across the organization. Chances you're already collecting a lot of information, or somebody in your company is collecting information and you don't know about it. Right? Then external, so I won't go too much into this. So this, you're talking to experts, you're talking to sometimes even competition, you're talking to distributors, you're talking to suppliers. industry experts. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done here. It's hard for companies to do it, so they hire external agencies to do some of this work, right? So I won't go into this. This is about building a CI. I think it may not be so relevant for this audience. So I'll just go ahead. So some of this, you're going to do it yourself. Some of this you're going to do it. You may hire someone. You may develop the capability. Some of it you may outsource, and that really depends on what's the right mix for you, right? So again, now we come back to how CI can help, and this is a little different from the earlier slide, where you're looking at the benefits, right? Can I improve customer acquisition or retention? There's some of the techniques or types of studies. For market share, then what do I need to do? So these are the different types of competitive intelligence techniques or studies or inputs that could help you in in a variety of ways. And this is not exhaustive. There may be many other things. There's a lot of work going into, say, technology assessment and things, especially in the tech world, right? So today I'm going to go a little bit into win-loss because win-loss is one of the things that is everybody knows about. It's easy to do and has a lot of value. The problem is that we don't see the value. We don't sometimes recognize what can be got from talking to customers and prospects, right? They are actually the most powerful source of information, more than competition, more. They will tell you about competition, in fact, right? So a little bit about win-loss. So a quick question, you guys are in bid and proposal management, and you obviously win some, you lose some. So how many of you do a win-loss analysis on a regular basis? Right? Anybody? Are you all doing it? Some? None? Anybody?
Yeah, I think most of us would be doing it. I think the regularity of it might be, a bit different, but most large deals get into win-loss analysis for sure.
Okay. So when you say win-loss analysis, what exactly are you doing?
Quite deal specific, right? So which means what was the solution we proposed, what was our price, what was competition price, who were the stakeholders, how were we aligned, where did we do well, where did we not do well. So it's very specific to the bid or the deal that we are working on or that we won or lost.
So it's like an internal brainstorming, or you're talking to the customer? The customer is giving this information, or you are?
Yeah, so the customer information is one source to it, obviously, right?
Okay.
Because you would go and talk to the customer and take the feedback from him, and of course you would have your own internal internal inputs as well, which forms a part of your opinion about why you won or you lost that deal.
Right. Okay. So everybody says we're doing win-loss, right? Some do it. Again, it's not really a deal-specific program. It is a more of a continuous program, right? So everybody say they do win-loss. Again, the definitions are a little bit different. And one of the things is that a lot of people ask the sales team, go and fill out these fields. They have a bunch of fields. Why did the customer, why did we lose, or different things might be there. And sales will generally not know the answer, right? And there are good reasons for that, right? Which I'll talk about in a second. But the point here is that it's not about analyzing your CRM. A lot of people think that, hey, I've bid for 50 deals in the last year and I want to analyze how many were lost, how many were won. It analyzed by geography, analyzed by salesperson, that's all fine, but that's the easy part. There's a lot more about using this as a tool to understand your customer needs, to understand the decision-making process, right? Sometimes we don't know enough about why they are making the decisions the way they are, why they are behaving in a certain way, right? And I'll get into that a little bit. So, this is not my data. Somebody has done a study internationally, and they found that only 20% of sales organizations conduct in-depth post-decision interviews, right? They do nothing, or they'll send a survey, right? A survey tends to be okay for small deals, but for a complex and expensive sales cycle, it lacks that professionalism and the ability to kind of take out things in a conversation, right? Sometimes you ask something and the guy will answer the ability to probe, the ability to kind of um, understand the meaning behind something that is said, right, is only going to happen in a conversation. The second thing is that sales talks to decision makers. And this is sort of, it's good, but one of the problems is that, sales has a relationship with the customer. You are talking to them, you've been talking to them for weeks, you've been talking to them for months. That guy has a personal rapport, right? So it becomes a little difficult for them to be truthful, right? Sometimes sales is busy, they are already working on the next deal, so this thing is not taken too seriously. Sometimes sales doesn't want the organization to know the real reason, right? If you ask a question, why did we lose? They'll say, hey, it was price. But is that the real reason? Was it price, or was it that the value was not demonstrated, right? And then salespeople are often not trained in doing this kind of stuff. So usually it's a neutral third party that's best. And I'm not just saying this because this our organization does it. Most of the things that are there in competitive intelligence can be done in-house. Market sizing and procurement intelligence. 90% of it can be done in-house. In many cases, it's better to do it in-house than to go to an agency. But a couple of things, right? Win-loss, voice of customer, where you have to talk to the customer, there is an unbiased perspective because there's no relationship, right? And this is, it's not me saying it. You can see documentation. It is like that. So this is, I'll share with you a analysis we did. So we did an analysis for a client where they had some data in their CRM and there were reasons for win-loss and stuff. And we collated this and we took the numbers and we called all the customers, right? Of course, a few of them did not speak, but we had enough who spoke to us. And the reasons, we looked at the reasons, right? So as per what the sales guys were saying, around 1/3 of the deals were lost on price. So they were telling the management, we have to price more aggressively. Then another like 20% was, hey, the project has been deferred. We have decided not to go ahead with it, right? Then a lot of them were again budget, which was again a price-related thing, right? So when we analyze this by calling them up and trying to get to the real reason, right? The thing changed a lot. So price was still one of the biggest things, but not as big, right? We found that the ones that were where the salesperson was told or the impression that the sales guy has priced was actually because the value was not demonstrated, right? It is not that price was high, it was that the guy did not feel that the value you were providing was worth the price, right? There's also some due to proposal quality or a lack of rapport between the salesperson and the customer, which the customer cannot tell, right? He cannot say, I didn't like your face, so that's why I didn't give you a deal. So whereas in an anonymous thing, they'll say it in a different way, right? they'll say, hey, the sales process could have been better, this, that, and you get a hint there that, this is where the problem is coming from. Another interesting thing was a lot of the deferred projects. When they say deferred, we decided not to go ahead with the project, right? It's actually because of poor qualification. Because that means there was no real project. It was somebody has floated the RFP. It was a junior guy. It was maybe they were doing CI of some kind. There was no real project there, and you wasted a lot of your time. So this happens a lot. I mean, it happens to us also. It happens to all sales organizations. That people will come to you and say, I want to do this and all, and you spend a lot of time, and then they say, no, we decided to defer the project. So that means the qualification in the beginning was not done properly. Is it because, so some of the things that come out by doing this actually help you to, plan better, do your proposals better, the whole process, right? So formal win-loss program gets you to the real reasons. So some of the key, apart from the reasons for winning or just that, so some of the questions are like this. So you can actually find out how they find you. You can ask them about what were the key selection criteria. Right? Sometimes it's not coming out in your negotiation process in normal conversation, but independently when you talk to them and say, hey, you are doing this and you're ordering so much every year, what are the key selection criteria? How do you go around making decisions, right? A lot of people will tell you this in a certain context. If it's not in a specific deal context, they will be more open, right? When you say, okay, typically you're buying IT or you're buying, research or whatever, typically how do you go around selection? Who are the influence? A lot of this information, can be collected like this. The other thing you can do is you can actually get benchmark data against your competition, right? You can ask them things like, how did I fare against the competition in terms of quality of proposal, in terms of, value proposition, whatever it is, quality of product. Again, depending on what you're trying to sell, you can actually ask people this, and you should ask people this in a win-loss program, right? And then, of course, the actual win-loss analysis in terms of, what is the pipeline, and am I doing better in certain geographies? Am I doing better in certain verticals? Do I win more of the large orders? Do I win less of the large orders? Have a better hit rate with existing customers? So a lot of those things are just, just a mathematical analysis. But really the other stuff, why is the customer thinking, competitor benchmarking, the feedback from the customer on my weaknesses, right, and my strengths. How can I improve? The other thing is that when we say win-loss program, is not only loss. And I think this is where people go wrong, right? How often do you talk to your customers when you have won, right? Do you ask them, why did you give me my project? Why did I win this? You're happy and great, everybody's happy, you to go ahead. But the reason why you won is actually critical, right? That's telling you a lot, right? So recently we try to do this. We don't, of course, hire external agency, but we get somebody who's not from the sales team, is not from at all connected with the customer. Someone from a marketing, they will call and they say, hey, why did you give us the project and stuff, right? And this happens, after the project as part of the feedback. But it's interesting to know why you won, right? And in our kind of environment, we are finding that the most important thing is our understanding of the customer's business, right? And if we can demonstrate that in a half an hour call or something, and we can say, we understand your business, right? Then we win. And that makes sense because we are a certain type of organization. So really understanding, why you have won is as critical as understanding why you have lost. And this is something that people don't think. You lost the project, so hey, there must be a problem. Let's probe, and there's huge hue and cry and brainstorming and this. Everybody's involved from the top management down, but you're neglecting something of why you won. And if you won a project, the guy is more likely to talk to you. He's more receptive, right? So don't miss that opportunity. Talk to them. Okay. So the point here is it's not about the percentages. It's about the qualitative aspects, right? And this comes out in a formal win-loss. So this is this is a summary kind of a thing. So win-loss, obviously it's telling you why you were selected, not selected, but it's also perception. How do they perceive us, right? How do they really perceive us as opposed to the competition? Are we going into situations with a negative perception, right? Is my brand like perceived to or associated with something, right? So in one of the cases, we found that they were doing everything, but the brand value was very poor, right? So that's a different problem. It's a different, like in our case, we try to compete with, let's say, KPMG of the world. They have a powerful brand. It's very difficult. You have to find some way to overturn that, right? Then you also get inputs into, what can go into marketing, what can go into messaging. Sometimes you get inputs onto product, right? Product needs to be tweaked. This is what customers are saying. And the other thing is that this whole process helps you build your relationships, right? You talk to them, or sometimes you get an external agency to talk to them. They appreciate it. They feel, wow, this company is actually cares so much about us. They're going and spending money, and they're getting these insights. Right? And how unbiased in this lot of different things. Right? Get an external agency or get somebody who's not from the sales team, who can provide an unbiased perspective. Yeah, so obviously if you can increase the win rate, you can, yeah. So this is typically, what kind of you will get out of a win-loss, right? There are some additional slides, but I think that we'll run out of time, and I think most of it has been covered. So any questions or inputs, anything we have? Abhijit, how much time do we have?
I don't think we have any time limit as such, as long as people have not, because people are very open to any sort of learning and insights. So you can continue, please.
No, there's nothing. I mean, other after this, I just have some slides, which is like some sample slides and all, but that's around this same these table of contents. So I have a slide on each of these, but that's just sort of a sample report kind of thing.
So then let's open up and let's have an interaction, and participants that they can ask their questions, and if they have any sort of experiences to share. Let's do that, and so please you can unmute yourself one at a time and ask your questions.
Hi, this is Ashish. First of all, Arun, thanks a lot. I mean, it was a wonderful session with key insights. I mean, for me, the competitive intelligence definition was different, but now it differs entire, and I get in about the loss. So I have a question regarding loss, and it's very important topic for any sales cycle. But in the scenarios where customer is not ready to talk, right? In that scenario, how do we do the velocity analysis apart from the sales perspective? Because like you said, say feedback might be biased, and might not have a right amount of motivation or information to do this. So in case of any absence of source, what would be other strategy to conduct it?
So you have to get customers to talk, right? They're not all going to talk, but quite a lot of them do. And if you go and say, hey, we really value your business, and we find that we lost this particular deal, but we would appreciate half an hour of your time, and we'd really like to understand how we could improve ourselves, rather than say, why did you lose? You have to position it in saying that we'd really like to understand why we, how we could improve and how we could better ourselves, and a lot of people will talk. It's a human thing. At some level, if they are not ready to talk at all, it's giving you a particular signal, right? Um, we, as a rule, if the guy is not willing to give us feedback on why we have lost or not, we disengage. We don't go back to them, because that they are not valuing your time. You have spent a lot of time uh, on your proposal. You have spent a lot of time presenting that proposal, iterating that proposal, meetings. It's taken up a lot of time and money of your organization. And at the end of it, if the guy can't spare half an hour, 45 minutes giving you some feedback, you really got to think about whether you want that guy as a customer. And this is my view.
Ashish, I would like to add over here is that where is it coming from? If it is coming from the sales saying that the customer doesn't want to talk, then there is a different interpretation of it also. So you have to take that also into consideration, that it was a wild chase by the sales, and the sales doesn't want to really now go back to that customer. The sales has no relation with that customer, so they are not able to ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Also, the thing is that it's a difficult conversation to have with the sales guy, right? Some of the customer, he may say that, sure, we'll do, but he can't tell the reasons to say. He can't say you goofed up on I didn't like the proposal, or something you didn't do properly. It was some presentation went wrong, or it's a hard one. So even if you don't get an external agency, try it somebody outside of sales within your organization. If you have a CopCom person or some neutral person who can, not a kid, right? A senior guy or woman or someone who reaches out independently and say, we really value your business and this, and we really like to understand how we could improve. See the response. You will get a response. It's again a hit rate. Never in our business and research and all, 100% response you're not going to get. If you get 30%, 50% people responding, that's fantastic. And that's good enough, right? It's good enough. You get a lot of insights even from a few customers who are openly talking. Okay. I mean, the same thing happens with voice of customer studies. Existing customers who already, where you have won, right? They are also very, very important. They'll tell you why. Even we've had customers where we have won, and they've told us why we have won, and they've also told us what we did wrong. Though they chose us, there were some things that they didn't like, maybe in the whole process, and they will share those things.
Hey, hi Arun. This is Pavan. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Arun, for throwing light on this topic of competitive intelligence. I mean, frankly speaking, even I was of the opinion that it is related to only competition. So, right, it has been quite insightful. I have a couple of questions. So, first is So overall, in an organization, where does this fall under? Which function actually carries out this competitive intelligence? Like you said, the information is actually available across the organization. It is
Right.
distributed. So is it the strategy team which is responsible for competitive intelligence as a whole?
Yeah.
And second question is, are there any tools available in the market and how effective are those?
Okay. So generally, in most of the cases, the CI or company it reports into strategy, right? In most of the organizations globally, it's strategy is the most. Second is marketing, right? These are the two, uh, things where the budget comes from, and usually it's there. Uh,
Right.
in terms of tools, I don't know whether you're asking about technology and stuff. There are tools. There are more than tools. There are techniques, right? How do you?
No, I mean, the question is, is this process entirely manual, or are there any tools available which kind of help us aid us do competitive intelligence?
See, the thing is that for certain types of analysis, certain types of information, there are tools now. Let's say one of the activities that a lot of people do is news monitoring, right? Of competition, of customers, which is a simple thing like I want to get all the news available on my sector or on my competition, on my customers, and I want it organized in a way and then sent to all the sales guys and sent. So earlier this used to be done manually. Today there are tools which can just provide you uh, very specific news streams. Uh, there are a lot of companies which sell these kind of news aggregation or new basic news analysis tools, but those tools cannot analyze, right? Yet,
Right.
AI and all they will arrange it, and they will sort of uh, club the news in some way so that it saves you time to in the aggregation process and the sorting process. But yet they are not able to analyze the questions of why is this happening, or so what will happen in the future. That yet there are no tools. So a lot of that is uh, fairly sort of human driven. Uh,
Right.
it's still largely human. There is, of course, in certain industries, let's say if I'm looking at consumer industries, right, where I'm, let's say, banking or FMCG or whatever it is. In some of these industries now, the customer intelligence aspect, there are very powerful tools using big data, and they will look at social media and they will understand what customers don't like and understand what customers like and all of that. But in the B2B context, the data is not available in the public domain for a tool to analyze it, right?
Right.
How many people are you? How many prospective customers do we have? Hundreds, in the hundreds, and the information that we want about them is not available in the public domain where a tool can go. And so tools are there, not there as such.
Mm.
There are analytical techniques, and yes, there are some templated kind of things. So, if you're doing regular voice of customer or regular win loss, then you can build some little programming or template around it so that you don't have to repeat the analysis every time. But there are no sort of magic tools. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Arun. That answers my questions.
Yeah.
So questions.
Hi, Arun. Am I audible?
You are a bit low, Sam. If you can just get nearer to your microphone.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, thanks, Arun. Thanks, Abhijit, for the session. My question is, when we do a SWOT analysis, is it part of competitive intelligence? When we talk about our strength, especially the weakness and the threat part, If yes, how can we do it better using the methodologies that you mentioned?
I couldn't hear the full question. Sorry.
Okay, I will repeat it. What Sam asks is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, that tools like SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, threats. How can we use tools like this? Because this is something which we generally use in a bit or recommended to use. How many of us use is again a question. But yeah, tools like SWOT analysis, how they can help and where exactly should we be doing this? Should we be doing at an opportunity level or should we be doing at a market level? That's something what Sam wants to know. Am I correct, Sam?
Yeah, that's right, Abhijit. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, so actually, SWOT analysis is also considered a CI technique. It's taught in a lot of CI programs. We teach it to all our analysts, right? So it's a very powerful technique. There's no denying that. In fact, a lot of the techniques, which you see in terms of analysis, or like whether it's Porter's analysis, PESTLE, SWOT, these are all used by CI practitioners, right? The only difference maybe is that they go a little deeper in terms of collecting the information or deriving answers, right? So sometimes you say, what are the opportunities out there? I can do a SWOT and I can highlight the opportunities, let's say after spending half an hour of reading on the internet. Or I can spend a significant amount of time in trying to understand those opportunities and then being very precise and particular about the specific opportunity. So like anything else, I can do a fairly superficial analysis or I can do a much more detailed analysis. So it's just a technique. It's how well you are able to use the technique. It's the quality of information that you're able to provide into the analysis also.
Does that answer you, Sam?
Yes, yes, Arun. Yeah, yes, Abhijit. Thank you.
There's a question I received from Mehran in chat, and he asks that in a price competitive environment of bidding, what can be the possible sales tools that can help you with win even when you are something higher than your competitors? Okay, you can take it, Arun, or else I would like to address that.
I don't know. I mean, this is something we also struggle with, but you have to differentiate. I don't know the business that you're in, Mehran. So in the in our business where we are selling inside, or people will hire us to do research or some opportunity assessment or something like that, and the only way we can sort of win on without getting into a price war is by convincing that guy that I can provide better insight than the other guy, right? And that is coming out of like some perceived that I am wiser or smarter in some way. So, very frankly, when we do work and all, so the sales guy will put my face there and they'll see one gray guy, bearded and all, he must be knowing something, right? So, it's what, I think it depends on the sector. I don't know what sector you are in. If I know that, maybe I can better attempt to answer that.
He's in oil and gas.
So are you selling oil equipment into oil and gas or what exactly? Or technology?
Yeah, equipment.
Yeah. I don't know enough about the sector. So, what are the concerns of your client? Is it safety? Is it downtime? What are the, say, 3 things that keep them awake at night, right? What is really, if he buys your equipment and something goes wrong, right? What are the things that can go wrong? And I think playing on those aspects is the only way. So if it's safety, then somehow you have to convince the guy that, pay me 2% more, 5% more, and safety will be taken care of. Is it performance? So there's something. If your product is just identical to the other guy, then it's a price war, right? You have to figure out what it is that is keeping that guy awake, right? And that's where CI in some other way can I figure out what's really his pain point.
So, yeah. Any more questions, participants? So I think I take that as the no more questions. So I thank you, Arun. It was really a very insightful session for all of us, and
Yes.
most importantly, even which includes me, as Pawan also said, that it changed our perception of competitive intelligence. That is the biggest takeaway we have here. That we heard about competitive intelligence, and we all thought it was only about the competitor. But from today onwards, we are much aware about what, at least we know the definitely. We don't know what competitive intelligence tools. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to know, and yes,
Yeah.
today at least we know what competitive intelligence. Thanks for making us at least educated on that part. And definitely the other things which you shared are a big takeaways for us, for everyone in the community, and we will try to implement it back. We'll try to come back, and we'll definitely come back to you with a lot of questions when we get into that journey.
Yeah,
So
thanks a lot.
Abhishek, sorry, Abhishek, I have one question just before we close. It just struck me. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Arun, you mentioned about some forum or something, SCIP, Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals. What is that? Can you throw some light on it?
Yeah, so it's an association of competitive intelligence professionals, scip.org, right? Strategic and competitive intelligence professionals.org. And we have a Skip India group also, which I've been sort of trying to get going. So there's a LinkedIn group called Skip India, which you can just go and request to join. And there's a Skip group on LinkedIn International also, which you can join, or just connect with me or send me a mail, and I'll tell you about it. So the organization is basically US headquartered. You don't have to be a member. It's quite expensive. It's about $300 or whatever. And sitting in India, we don't get a lot of benefits because, you get some literature, you get some material, templates and some stuff. But other than that, if you want any training and all, it's always charged. Here we have been trying to do some seminars and some informal thing, but we don't have a source of income, right? So it's become a little difficult to make that happen. But we have a small group of people. We have occasional seminars. We connect on LinkedIn, and so get in touch with me, or just look at the Skip India group or the Skip group on LinkedIn, or skip.org, and you'll get more information.
Sure. And do they have any certifications as well?
Yes. They have some certifications. You can go online and check. They are again quite expensive. Everything is in dollars, and we have been fighting with them for a long time that you have rupee pricing and all, and we'll get you people, but they're bureaucracy. So they've also gone through some churn internally. They had they went bankrupt, and they got a lot of hassles. So there's a little confusion about what's going on over there. But, feel free to reach out, and you could look at the skip.org website and join the LinkedIn group.
So I think Arun, it's time for us in India to where we have such a massive collection of professionals, congregation of professionals to form our own associations.
Yeah.
Why not Indian Association on Competitive Intelligence, and with people like you and your group who have been there, we are all there to support you. So we look forward for that.
Yeah, we can think of that. I mean, one of the things is that if we want to do it in India and we want to, then we have to set up a not-for-profit, because otherwise, how do we take money? All of those
Yeah.
issues.
So
You know?
we did that for APMP. APMP India is a chapter. We have a APMP India chapter. I was specifically involved in IIBA, which is a Association of Business Analysts. So India, I think is it's a call now, and it's a time now that we have. India has its own recognition. We don't have to look at
Right.
recognitions coming from US for an Indian.
Right. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. It's a lot of, someone's got to take a lot of time and effort. I'm thinking maybe when if I sell my company and retire, then I'll have the bandwidth.
Possibly, I'm already.
Yeah,
You
right
can.
now it's, I have to manage 30 people, I have to get business, and then I'm trying to do all this on the side is a little bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, but we can start thinking, at least if we
Absolutely.
start building the way. Maybe somebody like Pawan and Chinmaya or somebody else will take that and move it ahead, and they will be the pioneers. So I
Absolutely.
think that was a great interaction with you,
Yeah.
Arun, and with everyone here. Our next webinar is again going to be somebody with a very big, great insights, and we'll be sharing the information very soon in the community. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe and good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Abhijit.
Yeah.